Listen, very brief today, which means it'll probably be longer than any of the other ones we've done. But I think the point is this. There's a verse in John in the first chapter, and it says, of his fullness we have all received, and grace in exchange, or literally in the NAS it says upon grace. Truth is, preposition there is kind of like against or in exchange. I don't know what you're going through today. You don't know what I'm going through. I don't know what your family is facing. I don't know any of the circumstance of your life. I have very few people in this world that I know that many details about. And I'm certain that there's very few people in this world that know that many details about me and my family. What I do know is this, is that everyone faces challenges. And those challenges come, sometimes it seems, one wave after another. One thing happens and then another thing happens. And obviously, you can't predict and you don't know. And we could say that it's just time and chance in Ecclesiastes 9:12, or we could say that and understand that God himself is somehow vested and involved in the circumstance and details of our life, that these things aren't happening randomly in Romans 8 and verse 28 and 29, but they're being used by God as a testimony not only in our life, but also to the world around us. And God's using it to draw us closer to him. But that's not always the easiest thing to either understand or accept. We just acknowledge it, but I don't necessarily understand it. One thing I do know is this, that in the midst of everything that's happening in your life, and certainly as we approach the new year, God promises in the fullness of Christ that what we receive is grace in exchange for grace, in exchange for grace, in exchange for grace. I only have grace to go through what I'm going through today. But tomorrow there'll be new grace. There'll be fresh grace. And when something else comes up, there'll be fresh grace. When another person that I know and love is going through a trial and my heart breaks because I can't do anything for them, my hands are just incapable of providing anything other than perhaps a comforting word and my own personal prayer. There's grace at the end of grace, in exchange for grace, in exchange for grace. Everything that I face, I am comforted by the grace of God. God always provides his grace. And I exchange out one measure of grace in this particular situation for a brand new measure of grace. I hope everyone in this season is enjoying the measure of grace that God is pouring out on us. It's limitless. I understand the very word grace means limitless, but means undeserved. But God wants to give us a fresh perspective on his undeserved mercy for every situation, for everything you go through, for anything that you face. Grace in exchange for grace, in exchange for grace. I remember years ago, Howie Wolf, who was a pastor in our church, he's now long since gone to be with the Lord, he shared with me that his problems were coming in like waves on the sea. And he quoted this verse and he said, and so is God's grace. And you know what? He was right. Because that's what God does. Grace in exchange for grace, in exchange for grace. You never get enough of it. You never get more than you need. You get enough to meet the situation today, and then you got to turn that back in and receive God's fresh portion for what's happening tomorrow. Till next time, friends, grace in exchange for grace. God bless you.